Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Legacy Premier League. I'm joined by my good friend Eric Virgo. How are you doing, Eric?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm really excited for the magic that we have lined up for tonight, Jarvis.
Yeah.
We have Andrea Mengucci versus Autumn Burchett playing a bunch of fair blue decks against each other, except for one, and that's
Yeah.
this Hogak deck that Autumn has registered today. So I'm really excited to see what's going on. But I think you have something to say about the sponsors first, right?
Yeah. I would like to give a shout out to our sponsors, Wizards of the Coast, Cardholder, and Scott Monroe. Without them, this stream would not be possible. And in fact, I personally should thank Cardholder for sponsoring me as well. But yeah, I'm really excited to see the magic that we have tonight. I'll be playing after this, overall match, but I'm also excited to see what these two fantastic players have in store for us. But before that, let's take a look at the playoff bracket. So we're playing one winners bracket match tonight, and that's Javier versus Autumn. And then after that, I'll be playing a match versus Phil. But Javier and Autumn, both MPL members, both phenomenal players. I'm
Yeah,
really excited to see what.
yeah. The matchup we actually have going on is Autumn versus Andrea Mengucci, which is
Oh,
yeah, actually
shoot.
down there in the
Sorry,
lower
I
bracket. Yeah,
I misread
so
that. Yeah,
not
yeah,
Andre is a Mythic Invitational winner and not a Mythic Championship winner
yeah,
like Javier, so he's still got to earn that title.
yeah. Now, it's going to be great. And in fact, let's see what Twitter thinks about this matchup. Wow, it's really
Okay.
lopsided for two high caliber players, but you know what they say, the polls aren't everything. But
hmm
who who are you rooting for in this matchup?
So I'm not personally invested in seeing either one of these players beat the other. I'm just really excited to see two extremely high caliber
Hmm.
players face off in the match structure that we have. So instead of just this being a typical one match event, there's going to be each player bringing three separate decks to it, and the person is going to have to battle through all of the other decks that the player brings.
Yeah, I actually spoke with Autumn yesterday before both of us had to submit deck lists, and we talked some. So I'll take their side then, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So it's worth noting that the deck choice it does really matter here. You get to do some amount of metagaming. Maybe you can bring a diverse suite of decks. That way, you have the ability to sort of counter your opponent's other
Mhm.
deck choices with something that you think has a favorable matchup. But the very interesting thing that we see here is the deck choices that both players brought. So the first deck I think that we're going to talk about is Autumn's Hogak deck. And this is, if you're familiar with Modern and playing it for a while,
Yeah.
this is basically the exact same deck, but in Legacy. If you look at the card choices that are not the lands here, it's basically the exact same deck from Modern. So you're playing a bunch of graveyard enabler cards like Stitcher Supplier and Faithless Looting, and then a bunch of cards that interact very well with that. So Bloodghast, Gravecaller, Vengevine, all these sorts of things.
Yeah, I've personally played a lot with this deck, and when the deck first came out, Ari and I described the modern deck as a tier 1.7 legacy deck, which is
It's
a little
very
bit
specific.
facetious, but it goes to show you the power level of this deck. It probably does belong as a true legacy deck, I think, in terms of power level.
Yeah, I totally see that. We've seen this in this deck in the top eight of a Grand Prix. And
Yep.
the other thing that this deck does very well is that it counteracts fair blue strategies very well, and it does that for two reasons. The first is that it attacks on a very specific axis, and if you can't interact with that, you gain an advantage that way. And the other thing is, this deck actually has a lot of subtle card advantage engines in it, like
Yep.
Gravecrawler being able to recast Hogaks that have been countered. So a lot of times you can just grind out these fair blue strategies, and that may really pay off for Autumn here. And the reason for that is Andrea Mengucci has brought three fair blue decks to this,
Yeah.
so it's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out.
So speaking of which, let's take a look at Andrea's deck. Fair Blue, you called it.
hmm
Bug Delver. It's a classic.
Yeah, and this deck is trying to do the classic Delver strategy of play efficient threats, back it up with disruption like
Mhm.
counter magic and some removal, and quite frankly. this deck can still win games against basically anything. That's one of the reasons why high caliber players like to play this style of deck. It gives you play against pretty much everything in the format.
Mm-hmm.
Counter spells are good against, well, basically every deck in Magic because every deck has to play spells at some point, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, discounting the mentalist dredges of the world, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a very very small subset, but Adam's deck isn't that, or Autumn's deck isn't actually that far from it. It's it is playing quite a bit of graveyard strategies, but they are going to be casting quite a few spells.
Yeah. So what do you think? What do you think a normal game in this matchup looks like from both sides?
So I think we're going to see Autumn aggressively mulliganing to an enabler card like a Stitcher Supplier or a Faithless Looting, and we're going to see Andrea, because Andrea knows what they're playing against. They're probably going to aggressively mulligan for cards that interact with those cards, because one of the weaknesses of Autumn's deck is that if they can't get a graveyard enabler card going, their deck sort of spins its wheels a little bit. So Andre is going to be aware of that. So we may see him mulligan aggressively, especially game one to find a card like Force of Will, and especially game two to find a hand that has access to the Crop Rotation or Bajuka Bog.
All right. I'm looking forward to seeing this, and I'm personally hoping for some infinite millouts. But let's get down to the match.
Yeah.
All right. So
And it looks like we have Autumn on the play here.
Yeah.
And this looks like it looks like a quick mulligan from Autumn.
Yep.
And let's look at the texture of this hand right here. So I think they're going to 6 here. Autumn does have access to one of the two graveyard enabler cards, actually, the Stitcher Supplier and the Putrid Imp. But it's worth noting that they only have a single land. So they may not have the ability to cast that Altar of Dementia.
Yeah, despite that, I think you probably are going to keep this hand, and I believe that's what Autumn's doing. I think Autumn's debating which card to put back. It's kind of tricky because I think actually, we'll see what Autumn decides to do, but you can make a case for anything but the land, I think. Actually, that's not true. You can't make a case for the Putrid Imp.
Yeah, I think the Putrid Imp is what sort of lets this hand just completely go off. If the Putrid Imp gets in play, they're going to dump their probably the rest of their hand into their graveyard minus the altar, and then just start casting Hogaaks and doing unfair things.
It's really hard for the Delver deck, this specific Delver deck, to deal with Hogaak, actually. So we see Bloodghast go, and I think that's defensible. You'll probably see more recursive creatures off of your Mill 3. And realistically, this hand can play around Wasteland because you don't have a red card in sight. So yeah, as I think would probably happen, you fetch the Black Source, a basic swamp.
Yeah, and Autumn leading on the Stitcher Supplier here. So what do you think is going through their head leading with Stitcher Supplier instead of the Imp?
Okay, so there's a few reasons to do that. I think Supplier is the more important card here. And in fact, next turn, we could actually see a Hogaak. We could see Putrid Imp, discard your hand, convoke out Hogaak, return Vengevine.
That's a pretty...
And that's from a mulligan to 6.
Yeah.
Just think about that.
That is a very, very powerful start. Not to mention, Autumn has Altar Dementia, so if they're able to find a second land.
Oh!
There's the second land! Oh, right. So...
the
fatal push here. So Andrea is aware of the ability to potentially Hogaak this turn. And because Autumn won't have a second black creature in play, there's not going to be a Hogaak here. That's a pretty heads up play from Andrea.
Yeah, great play. So now it gets a lot more complicated what you're supposed to do. So I guess we can set up some things. I'm kind of interested because you could make a case for playing either of the two permanents in your hand, right?
Yeah, it's worth noting that I think Autumn has to... Oh no, they do have access to a second basic swamp here. So I think because of that, they're still insulated from that wasteland, which means they're less incentivized to cast the Altar of Dementia. But Autumn's still choosing to do that here.
And honestly, that's going to be a huge problem, I think. Oh, the days is
The
too late.
the days is too late, but importantly, it is a blue card for the Force of Will in Andrea's hand. So Andrea is going to be able to just play a parade of Tarmogoyfs here, which are already at
Yeah.
4/5 on turn 2, and this Force of Will may be just enough disruption. Oh, but another
I,
black creature from Autumn. This is going to
yeah.
turn on a Vengevine in their graveyard.
Yeah, and importantly, you should lead on supplier because if you hit another Vengevine, it's so much better for you. I actually think
Absolutely.
there's a very real chance we see the infinite kill this turn.
Yes. So
I don't know
can,
if you're
can you
familiar
walk
with
us
this
through
kill.
that? I am. Can you walk us through that though?
Okay, so the general idea is to use Altar of Dementia plus Hogak plus Bridge from Below to mill yourself, to keep convoking out Hogaks, to keep milling yourself for more Bridge from Belows, to make more zombies. And eventually, you'll get to a board state where you can just basically uh, make enough zombies to just mill your opponent out for like 50 plus.
Hmm.
I think there's actually like a technically optimal way to do it. I'm always too lazy to figure that out. I think generally there's a point where it's good enough, and I think we're at the point where it's good enough.
Yeah, I think we're at that point as well, and it gets pretty disgusting when you have multiple copies of Bridge Below in the graveyard too. So every Hograk that you sacrifice or alter, you're now getting two zombies. That's automatically going to be enough to recast the Hogak, and the chain just goes.
And you can also use Hogak to convoke out another Hogak and sack the first Hogak with the second Hogak on the stack. There's a lot of disgusting things you can do here, but really, I'm smelling a dead Andrea right here.
Yeah, so Andre basically out of interaction this game. They have a Wasteland in hand, no legal targets on Autumn's side of the field, only another
Yeah.
Tarmogoyf, and Autumn is threatening a lot here.
Yeah, and really we see the vulnerability of Delver to like graveyard strategies, especially go wide graveyard strategies in this game, I think.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons to play the Hokage. And there we go. We see the concession from Andrea. They know what the combo kill is. And,
Yeah.
they're ready to go to game 2.
I would like to note, even without the altar there, I still think Andrea was dead to the 8/8 Trampler.
Very likely. You he did have two copies of Tarmogoyf, so he could have potentially blocked and traded. But one of
Yeah.
the best parts about Hogak is when it dies, you can just recast it again. So it just keeps coming
Yeah.
back for more and more and more.
I think Canister said it best when he was first discussing the card. You can't pay for mana this, you can cast it from the graveyard. This is a joke, right?
Yeah, it
You
if
literally said that.
yeah, it's one of those cards where like you look at it and you go, you can't even believe that the text is on the magic card, right? You can't pay
Yeah.
mana for this spell. That's wild. All right, so let's talk about sideboarding here. You said you've piloted Hogak quite a bit. What do you like from Autumn's side?
So the real trick is your deck is an engine deck, so you can't mess too much with it. But cards like Assassin's Trophy are nice because they just let you play a normal game of Magic. And
Hmm.
you also know Andrea's deck has zero basic lands, so it's just a straight up terminate. Actually, straight up vindicate, right? You could
Yeah,
kill their lands if you really wanted to.
yeah. 2 mana instant speed vindicate is pretty strong. One of
Yeah.
the subtle things going on here is Autumn has two Force of Vigor in their sideboard.
Yep.
Because we have open deck lists available, they know that Andrea has no artifact or enchantment
Exactly.
based hate, so they won't have to bring that card in, and that's a big advantage because
I
drawing that card when it
yeah.
doesn't have targets is terrible for the Hogak.
Yeah, that is unique to the open deck list part of this tournament. It's going to pay off for Autumn right here because, like you said, Force of Vigor is not a real Magic card in most games, whereas Assassin's Trophy is.
Absolutely. Yeah. And on Andrea's side of the things, they're going to bring in Crop Rotation and Bajuka Bog,
Hmm.
which is a 1 mana instant speed way to completely remove Autumn's graveyard. Obviously, very strong in a matchup like this. And they're going to be bringing in Surgical Extractions. And most notably, they have Plague Engineers as well. What do you think that's for?
I think generally the plan is to name Zombie with that. It KOs a lot of the like small creatures and also halves the effectiveness of Bridge from Below.
Yeah, and I think the card that's most important there is that it's going to be stopping Gravecrawler at
Yep.
Daly's Trap because Stitcher Supplier, it is a zombie. That's still 1 mana mill 6. It's
Mhm.
still pretty efficient for the Hogak deck.
So let's take a look at both hands. Hmm. So Mengucci's deciding. Looks like he kept, and
Hmm.
I also think Autumn's hand is quite good.
Yeah, Thoughtseize is a fine card in this matchup because you're able to take the one enabler from the Hogak deck's hand. You can slow them down quite a bit and develop your game plan in the meantime. And I think that might be what happens here. No, actually, Autumn has both the Stitcher Supplier and the Putrid Imp,
Hmm.
so they're not going to be able to completely stymie Autumn's development.
But Mengucci's showing real respect, taking Citrus Supplier. That
Hmm.
card is so subtly powerful. Like,
Yeah, sometimes it has the effect of being a one
yeah,
mana moat because you don't want to
yeah.
have the opponent block and be able to mill an additional 3 cards for effectively free.
But I love this play from Autumn. You can Thoughtseize here, um, take whatever you think the best card is, and next turn set up, play Putrid Imp, discard Vengevine, play discard Gravecaller, play Gravecaller, trigger Vengevine, and just attack.
Right. And I really like this play from Autumn as well. One of the reasons for it is they know that if this game goes 15 turns, they're going to grind out
Yep.
Andrea.
Yep.
They don't need to win the game right away. It's not a combo matchup. Let's make sure that the coast is clear. We'll lead off with Thoughtseize, and then we'll start killing them later.
In fact, I think that demonstrates one of the problems with the matchup from the Delver side. I think Autumn is both a combo deck and a grind out deck, so you have to respect both axes. So
Yeah, and
you have to really thread the needle to set up a window to kill your opponent.
yeah, and we just saw an unbelievably disciplined play from Autumn, uh, taking the brainstorm over
Mhm.
the other cards in their hand that actually do things is something that probably doesn't happen often enough in Legacy. Brainstorm
Yep.
often is the best card in someone's hand, but when you're casting a discard spell, you almost impulsively want to take the action spells from their hand. And I think
I
we're going to see
think,
that line that you were talking about from Autumn here.
yeah. And Mengucci knows this card is too important. You got to force it. If you
Hmm.
don't force it, you get Vengevine this turn.
Yeah, and a 4/3 haster is nothing to laugh, nothing
No,
to turn your nose up about. It's that's a strong card and it can kill you very very quick.
agreed. It does not have the creature type zombie for Plague Engineer, though. It is an elemental.
But Plague Engineer does it all. It's got Death
Yeah.
Touch anyway, so it's an effective
Yeah.
against Vengevine.
Engineered Plague never had it so good, huh?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you put Plague Engineer in your deck instead of Engineered Plague, there's the trade-off of being able to hit by or being able to be hit by removal. But
Yep.
Plague Engineer is such a strong card.
Ooh, Assassin's Drift. We could go for a little sinkhole action.
We could go for a sinkhole action, but I think Autumn is going to want to save that because
Yeah.
Andrea is not applying any pressure right now. So Autumn is not forced into making any sort of play. So they're probably just
Mm.
going to sit back, try to draw another graveyard enabler, and then tag Andrea's first creature. Or if they have, or if Andrea happens to play Plague Engineer on Zombie, something that might
Mhm.
actually disrupt Autumn's game plan, then they'll tag that.
I mean, one thing to notice playing the Gravecrawler here is mostly free
Hmm.
because Karen Feeder is also a zombie. Note Autumn knows about the 2 left cards on Menguchi's hand. They
Hmm.
don't know about the days, but they know about the engineer and push. And I think we're going to. Autumn and Menguchi both know an engineer is going to happen this turn, naming zombie.
Right. It did require Andrea to draw the third land there, but
Yeah, this is fine though. It's just a gray ogre versus, well, nothing I suppose for right now, but that's not a
yeah.
very fast clock.
Hmm. Yeah. Worth noting that Putrid Imp is another zombie,
Yeah.
and Autumn is going to go here and fire off this Assassin's Trophy, which it might get dazed.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think you have to daze it because that's just holding off all of Autumn's 1 mana black creatures.
Yeah, and that is a big deal. Force of Will, not the best draw, but Andrea still has a lot of blue cards in their deck.
The land's a little bit too late for Autumn, but
Hmm.
problem is their hand doesn't really do much right now.
Yeah, and Autumn is only another land away from just casting this Vengevine.
Oh, Imp does have Threshold? Huh, that's actually interesting. So you play the Imp, it'll be a 1/1. You discard Vengevine, then you play Gravecaller suicidally. And then you can convoke out Hogak by just playing it. That's
Yeah,
probably.
So when you convoke to play the Hogak and delve away your graveyard, it will kill the Putrid Imp though. But I think just putting an 8/8 in play is going to be good enough here.
Yeah, well, maybe not because you can block with the Death Touch Engineer, but then the Grave Callers are live to be recast, right? So
Well, yeah, but if you just sit there and you have a Hogak and a Vengevine in play, you can just sit there and beat down with a Vengevine return, which is probably going to be good enough.
So one interesting timing thing that could happen is um, if Mengucci does not respond to this Vengevine trigger by pushing the Putrid Imp, which I think it looks like he's going to do,
Yeah, this is just
there would
tight
be
play
no
from
window to stop the Hogak from being cast, correct?
correct, because Autumn will have priority after the crawler resolves, and that's a really heads up play.
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to point that
from
out
Andrea.
because it looks really, really, really good to.
Yeah, but it's worth noting Andrea's already at 12 here. With the Thoughtseize and with the Force of Will and this Vengevine attack, that's a 3-turn clock. That's he's got to do. He's got to put something together here.
Bridge from below, not ideal.
Definitely not ideal. Let's see what are Andrea's good draws here. Probably Tarmogoyf is their best draw.
Tarmogoyf is probably the best draw. That's sort of okay, but sort of not okay because you are losing this race by a significant amount.
Yeah, and I think wow, this is a pretty aggressive attack from.
I think Mengucci is playing to the out of drawing Tarmogoyf next turn.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you do that, all of the attacks you've made look really good. Because then Autumn's no longer allowed to attack with Vengevine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Brainstorm.
Brainstorm is a start.
It's a good start.
Brainstorm is the best card in Legacy, right? Oh, Fatal Push not quite good enough.
Yeah, I mean, this Plague Engineer is still on blocking duty here,
Yep.
which it will take down the Vengevine, but because Autumn has double carry, it's just going to be coming back next turn.
Exactly. You're more than happy to just throw away 2 creatures to flip that Vengevine back. And Mengucci is very acutely aware of the fact that that's a very real possibility.
Whoa! Okay, so this play means that Mr. Mengucci is going to be chump blocking here.
That just means you have to block with your engineer next turn, right?
Yeah, because Andrea knows what's on top of his deck. He knows he's not going to be able to attack with this Plague Engineer again. Interesting.
Okay, so Mengucci's plan is to revolt the Fatal Push and hope Autumn somehow doesn't have 2 black creatures. But it's pretty easy to deduce that their likely holding is just black creatures that died to Plague Engineer, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Autumn only did have access to black mana, so they could Faithless Looting, additional Assassin's Trophy. So there were some other options, but I think you can probably say there's at least one card in their hand that's a zombie.
Does Thoughtseize do anything? Oh, you can Thoughtseize yourself if you really want to put Bridge from Below in the graveyard. And actually, that looks like a phenomenal play.
It is because you just get to start casting the Carrion Feeder. You cast a Carrion Feeder. It dies to the state-based effect caused by the Plague Engineer, giving it -1/-1. You get a 2/2 zombie, but it comes into play as a 1/1. But now you have a zombie in play, so you can continue to cast the Gravecrawler from your graveyard, which will come into play, die from a straight state-based action, Bridge from Below trigger. So basically, you pay 1 mana for a 1/1 zombie with the way that the board state is.
But look at that. Autumn cast a Thoughtseize on themselves. Mengucci just as quickly just cast Dissipate on it, knowing what was going to happen. That's just great.
Man, it's Andrea. Andrea is, I think, it feels like he's a bit on the back foot this game, and he basically got murdered on, but he has made a number of really, really tight plays this match so far.
Yep. Also, Mengu knows his top card is Force of Will, which is unlikely to be good enough here. Well,
Mhm.
actually, it's not even that bad, is it? Let's
Um,
see. No, it's not even that bad. So suppose Autumn
it
plays
depends on what
both of
Autumn
their
does this turn.
creatures. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh,
I think.
it looks like that might be what Autumn is going for
Yeah,
here.
yeah. Now the
This per-
question is, do you get Badlands or do you get Bayou? Uh,
I think you have more red cards that you want to cast in your
yeah,
deck.
you have 4 lootings versus. I mean, Ventrine's off the table because I think the deck only plays 2 Bayou, so you can no longer hardcast it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Autumn's going to be throwing away their 2 carrion feeders away to get this Vengevine. And I think Autumn is probably incentivized to make this play, or what's going on in their head is, okay, Andrea chump blocked with a Delver and then Fatal pushed it. So they're probably out of answers because that's sort of a desperation
Yep.
play. So if I put this
Yep.
Vengevine back in play, I know they're Brainstorm locked. It's probably going to be good enough here.
Yep. Agreed. And now, if you draw any zombie, you can just start casting your other zombies, your grave callers and stuff, and it'll be pretty
Mm-hmm.
good.
Well,
How about a second bridge from below, though?
that's exactly what Autumn wanted.
No, that's the way Mengu can win this game. If
Yep.
Autumn just draws a bunch of bridge from blows, ooh, Caracas or
Ooh,
Hogak.
Caracas is actually subtly very strong here because
Yeah.
oh, and another brick from Autumn. That's giving Andre an opportunity to sort of draw out of this.
So one really tight play there is Autumn's holding that land because it's better for Faithless Looting and for Bloodgas triggers to do that.
Absolutely. Oh, and look at this. We have
Ooh,
a zombie.
okay.
Now
Well,
the question is Andrea going to force a will this? I think actually they might have to, or else they're just dead.
yeah, I think you have to because there's another grave card. And also that allows a second zombie to be cast for Vengevine. So
Right.
it's just a forced play.
Yeah, it's a forced play because if Gravecrawler goes into the battlefield, Autumn can cast the second Gravecrawler, trigger the Vengevine. The Vengevine comes back. Most notably, you actually cast the Gravecrawler from the graveyard. Oh, that's a big draw from Andrea.
Yeah, that might buy Andre enough time.
Mm-hmm.
Alter
Alter
not
here.
so good here.
It's another blank for right now. It might be good in the future, but not doing anything here. And
Right.
Autumn's just going to rent it out just to sort of free up her mana or free up their mana for future turns.
Yep.
What do you think Andrea is going to want to target with Surgical here?
Probably just wait to see something actually happen.
Yeah.
Like, mana's not the bottleneck, so by waiting, you just gain more flexibility in your actions.
Mm-hmm. Forcible.
Wow.
Actually, that's a fine
Yeah,
draw from Andrea.
agreed. Maybe this is gonna work out okay. Bloodgas is pretty good here. So
Oh my
remember when I
god.
said holding the land for Bloodgas? This is the scenario. You get around
This is
surgical
great.
extraction by playing the Bayou.
Oh, this is so strong. And because Andrea is at less than 10 life, Bloodghast has haste.
Yep.
And when you're at 3 life, a hasty 2/1 is a pretty scary threat.
Yeah, you cannot force a will this thing effectively plus surgical it because of the marsh flats and land in
And
Autumn's hand.
the land in Autumn's hand.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh,
man.
let's.
Oh, this is a big resource drain for Andrea.
But notably, that I suppose Mengudu too. You know what? How much power Vodgas has?
Yeah.
2
2.
power. Uh,
Jeez.
wow, that
I
was
mean,
that was an exciting one.
that really was. Okay. So I just want to point out again, we saw a lot of tight plays from both players there. That was
Yeah.
even though those games or game one didn't seem particularly close, there was a lot of really good magic that we saw there. That was awesome to watch. So Autumn wins match one. Now here's the big question: what do we think Andrea is going to bring to the table now? He has 2 other options. He has Band Miracles and he has Grixis Delver. If it were up to you, what would you be bringing to the table here?
I would personally just look at the sideboards of each of the decks and decide which one's better versus graveyards.
Wow. So you just say, all right, I'm just going to lose game one. That's your.
Most likely, you're going to lose most game ones as a fair blue deck versus that deck, I think, unless if you're
Mhm.
very, very like, if you're Rip Helm, I don't think you would, but I don't think Mengucci brought Rip Helm. But
No. Just a bunch of elk makers.
yeah. But before the next match, I think we have a raffle to give away. Is that
Oh,
correct?
I think we do. Yeah.
No.
No, we
Wait.
don't have a raffle.
Okay. I was tricked. Later. There will be a raffle later.
Very misleading.
Yeah.
But it's getting the audience hyped for the rest of this.
The man behind the curtain tricked us.
Yeah.
Oh,
so,
the raffle will be when a player hits 2 wins. So keep an eye out for that.
mhm.
But I think we should, or I should take leave, being replaced by a better person than myself in the booth. But I'm excited to watch more Magic. So
Yeah, and
we'll be right
I'm
back.
excited to watch more Magic too. It's going to be great.
Be right back, y'all.
All right, everyone, welcome back. I'm here with Jonathan Sugan. John, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. One match in the books, but plenty more to go, so I'm really excited.
Yeah, and before we do a recap of that, we have a quick word about our sponsors. You know them, you love them. A thank you to Card Hoarder, Wizards of the Coast, and Scott Monroe for making this possible. We just wouldn't be able to do this without them, and we're very, very thankful for their support.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Jonathan, give us a quick overview of what happened last match between Autumn and Andre.
Yep. So we saw Hogak against Bug Delver, and Delver strategies tend to have a hard time with graveyard decks, be it just traditional dredge, manaless dredge, since like Death Ratch Hamilton ban, and Hogak. And Hogak's a little bit different in how like consistent but different angles of attack it has, and it's like very flexible. And the first game was like pretty traditional, but the second game was pretty interesting, where we saw Plague Engineer sort of like stymie what the Hogak deck was doing, but then just being able to win in a very fair way with like Vengevine, then it's like virtually discard two creatures, another Vengevine, and then like back from the graveyard.
I don't know how fair multiple free Vengevines is, but I think Autumn had I think it was two Vengevines in play that they didn't pay for that game, so fair for a legacy maybe.
Yeah, a lot more fair than Vengevine would normally be. Like, it's kind of funny.
For sure, but I think the way that the format works out here is Autumn is going to be playing Hogak until they get beat by Andrea, and Andrea is going to switch up their deck this round. And I believe Andrea is bringing Bant Miracles to the table.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty interesting deck, a classic Miracles control shell. Ponder, Brainstorm, accumulated knowledge to get some card advantage, and then it plays some really high impact spells like Terminus, and then a whole suite of Planeswalkers, Jace, Oko, Teferi, which is typically how it actually wins the game, is accruing card advantage through those.
Yeah, so there's kind of a few different approaches Andrea's going to try to use here. So you might be able to use Force of Will and Force of Negation to be able to stop the very important like key aspect. So even like a Terminal Stitcher Supplier might seem a little bit innocuous, but it's kind of like a double Ancestral Recall. So being able to counter things before they can produce an advantage. But at the end of the day, a single Terminus can also get Andrea back into a match. Sounds like an alter kill or something like that. But one thing that is to note is that Terminus playing cards on the bottom of the deck is both like a pro and a con. It's pro in the way that like the creatures won't come back unless if there's a carrion feeder involved. But a con is also, it is kind of hard for this deck to remove Bridge from Below from the graveyard, because you just have the two Snapcaster Mages. I guess Oko can also make an Elk on your side eventually, but you don't have like an efficient way to just kill it also. So once a Bridge from the Below gets in the graveyard, it's probably going to stay there for a while.
Yeah, so the bridge is going to be sticking around from the graveyard. I think in all three games here. So other than the interaction that you talked about with Snapcaster Mage or making an Elk from Oko, Andrea actually doesn't have the ability to remove a bridge from the graveyard. It looks like, I don't know, maybe there's some other corner case here that I'm missing, but bridge is going to be a key card from the matchup on Autumn's side. But something that you mentioned, it was Terminus, and I think that might actually be the most important card in Andrea's deck. We saw the Hogak deck play against a fair blue strategy last round, and what we saw was, especially game two, grave crawlers being cast multiple times, and Vengevines coming back from the graveyard multiple times as well. And that's because they died through like traditional means, through creature combat, a removal spell. But Terminus puts it on the bottom of the deck. So, if Autumn has another game where they draw a couple branks, like multiple Bridge from Belows and an altar that's not really doing anything, they can't recoup that the effective card disadvantage that they get by recasting spells from their. So that's a really, really key interaction here. The way Andrea sets up and plays his Termini is going to be super.
So who do you give the edge to?
So because of just the texture of Andrea 75, I do think I'm going to give the edge to Autumn here. Andrea doesn't have a ton of graveyard interaction spells, which is typically the axis you want to here.
Mm-hmm. I'll take the other side of the coin. I'll take Andrea. Just maybe being able to Force of Will and Force of Negation key cards, and then being able to set up a good Terminus could be enough. And stealing game one would be very important. So we'll see how it plays out.
Absolutely. Yeah, game one is huge. But it looks like our players are ready here. So let's. All right. And it looks like Autumn is on the play here. Always important in Legacy. And, it actually looks like a pretty good hand on there. So,
Yeah, Faithless Looting is going to be able to put these Bridge from Blows in the graveyard, and then you also have the access to have like Bloodghast and Altar. One thing that could be difficult is if your Faithless Looting gets Force of Negation or even Force of Will, because like the flashback doesn't matter that much in the short term, because this hand doesn't do that much otherwise, and it kind of relies on a land. So if Autumn keeps and Andrea mulligans, it could be possible that getting a single force could be good enough to win.
wow. And on Autumn deciding to mulligan that hand, I think, they probably felt like it was too all in on that Faithless Looting. And with Andrea with 6 forces in their deck, probably too much.
Yeah, and Andrea yet to find a land in any of their opening hands. So
Yeah, you hate to see it. I mean, already down a game here, something that might be a difficult matchup, and mulliganing game 5, or excuse mulliganing to 5 game 1, not exactly where you want to be.
but looking at how the hands line up, this isn't terrible. So the Astro Lab is going to be able to fix the mana, and then the Source of Plowshares can interact with Hogak and Vengevine. So
And
not a terrible
accumulated knowledge.
situation if players if Andrea's aware of Autumn's hand.
Yeah, and Andrea's really going to be able to slow the game down with these Swords to Plowshares here, and accumulated knowledge is one of the very few cards in Legacy that generates real card advantage. So Andrea may be able to cash up from that mulligan. Okay.
Yeah, so sequencing is pretty interesting here. So if you play the Citrus Supplier first, then that can allow you to get a land for Bloodghast, like when you play the Marsh Flats. So probably want to play the Supplier first.
Yeah, I think you want to play the Supplier first as well, because it gives you an additional opportunity to put Vengevine in the graveyard, and you want that Vengevine in the graveyard. But Autumn opting to just get the guaranteed Vengevine here.
Yeah, so the reason why we saw Autumn not play Putrid Imp on turn 1 was because with the way their hand was set up originally, playing a turn 2 Putrid Imp is a lot more potent, because then you can do exactly this line. It just so happens that they drew a Citrus Supplier and are likely to cast that, but just getting a turn 2 Vengevine is pretty powerful.
Yeah, and something you always have to be aware of when you're playing against this deck is how far away are they from Hogak. So they have 3 creatures in play. That's 3 mana towards it, and they have now 5 cards in the graveyard.
Surprise!
That's a Hogak.
Yeah, so that Citrus Supplier being a very good card. So like, I always call Citrus Supplier like double Ancestral Recall, but here instead it's closer to just like double Ancestral Recall and some like Dark Ritual too.
Yeah, because why not, right? Yeah, this was one of those very subtly powerful cards. When it came out, people didn't immediately realize just how broken it was, and it kind of sat dormant for a little while, and then they printed Hogak, and you see the cards. They work very well in concert together.
So one thing that's interesting is by choosing to attack with Vengevine, you have this Hogak that you want to play, but then that exiles the Gravecrawler in the graveyard. And the total amount of power in play would be 12 plus 2, which is 14. So that's actually 1 off lethal. So there's also some consideration for this, exactly. So you can discard the Putrid Imp. So your opponent's turning your Putrid Imp into the graveyard Gravecrawler. But it can be very difficult to rebuild from here if a Terminus is found off the top.
Yeah, and really important. Andreas has 2 swords in hand, and that's going to remove 12 power from Autumn's side of the battlefield permanently. It's never coming back. So really, really going to stymie the development here. And Autumn's going to have just sort of mediocre beats for the next 2 turns here.
Yeah, so like I was kind of considering on the previous turn that you can keep the Putrid Imp in your hand and not attack with the Vengevine. So then you just use like the 4 cards that were in Gravecrawler and then the 3 in play. So you like deal 4 less damage, but then you get both the Putrid Imp and the Gravecrawler to play around Terminus. But getting the 4 damage in last turn makes the fact that you have this, I guess like not like little knucklehead like kind of beatdown draw, like the 4 damage matters in that regard. So a pretty big decision the previous turn in terms of like which one you wanted, but I like this idea of just trying to get Andrea dead and really forcing Andrea to have the swords in that situation.
Definitely. I think that's how you want to play game one, when you know you don't have to face the sort of the haymaker side game two. Typically, you play a little bit more slower, more tactical game there, but here it's just about killing your opponent. And if Andrea is able to set up a terminus here, it's lights out for all.
Yeah, so Andrea's choosing to take that turn to play an AK for a few reasons. So Andrea can play a brainstorm first, but then you sort of like pseudo brainstorm lock the next turn. And it's like all hunky dory if you draw a fetch land or if you draw a terminus and then you can like set it back up on top. But the reason why you want to play AK first is for all the times you draw a fetch land, then this snow covered island that's untapped would be a fetch land, and then you would be able to brainstorm the next turn and have like a really good scenario there.
Yeah, that's one of those subtle things with cantrips that a lot of people might not pick up on. Okay, so we see a brainstorm in response to this altar here.
Yeah, so I've seen Anurag stream this card, but I actually don't know what it does. What's the card?
Yeah, so it's Seven's Reclamation. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, but it's a 3-mana sorcery that says return target permanent from your graveyard to play if its converted mana cost is 3 or less. Not really a great card on its surface, but it has flashback for 4 and a white that says that do the same thing, but if you flash it back, get 2 permanents. So it's a form of card advantage, and even when it's just the sort of one for one on its surface, it's getting like the best card in your graveyard back. So it's sort of like Snapcaster Mage in that regard, where it's a 2/1 plus the best card you can.
Interesting. So yeah, so that means you would be able to get back like Snapcaster Mage, Teferi, Oko, back to basics if that got killed in a certain matchup.
Astrolabes if they got tagged.
If they got Elkified and then died. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so it has actually quite a few synergies in the deck that are strong.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it looks like the Ponder is the Reclamation that you described earlier, Delta and Terminus. So Terminus being a very key card here without a Carrion Feeder in play. So one thing that Andrea has to consider is you can draw the Reclamation or the Delta and then have the Terminus on top. But then when do you want to fire off this Terminus? So you can do it just on their like upkeep draw step main phase, just like sometime like before combat, or you could wait until the end of turn.
And it looks like Andrea's going for the upkeep line. Wow.
Yep. And that makes the most sense because there's like a subset of times where Autumn draws a card like Bridge from Below and then is able to put it in the graveyard with Putrid Imp. So
and
playing around the draw step is pretty important there.
Playing around the draw step too, and I agree with Andrea's line here to not give Autumn an step when they have 4 power in play, but just because this deck is really good at dealing damage in multiples of 2 and 4. So they could produce a Vengevine that's lethal. They could produce 2 zombies. They could produce a Gravecrawler plus a zombie. There's so many combinations of cards that add up to exactly 4 damage that it would be a 1-turn.
Yeah, so one thing to note here is, exactly this. So the fetch land enables Mystic Sanctuary. So being able to get back, Source of Plowshares here suffices. Just so one reason to get the Source of Plowshares is you want to leave the Terminus in your graveyard for the second Mystic Sanctuary if you need to get it.
Yeah. So it's worth noting that you actually cast the.
Oh yeah. For some reason, I thought you like flashed it back. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
It feels like you're flashing it back when you. So the card does go to the graveyard after you resolve it, but Swords and Terminus functionally the same card there. Just the difference is that you're removing the Gravecrawler, putting it on the deck, and I think that's
exactly.
Oh,
it's like pretty marginal, but I think it's fine. Yeah, like life doesn't really matter in the matchup.
Life on Autumn side of the table. And Andrea with a great top deck here.
Yeah, so Teferi Time Raveler every few turns can draw a few cards. And then with Snapcaster Mage is even nicer. You can flashback and draw a card every few turns.
Does Autumn have access to the second Bayou here?
I think so, yeah. Okay.
They're going to be able to cast this Vengevine, and man, they have a lot of outs.
That's a pretty huge draw. But
that's a big draw step.
Yeah, so drawing a land would actually be pretty cool for Mengucci because he
And
would be able
Autumn
to
going for the
Snapcaster and
throat doesn't
plow
even
and back to basics.
yeah, Autumn going for the throat, just ignoring this Teferi says, "I'm here to kill you." A Teferi uptick doesn't really change what I'm gonna do. Wow. But Andrea with back to basics in hand gets to triple Stone Rain Autumn here. Oh my god.
Well, the problem is if you play your back to basics, then are you just gonna Snapcaster and chump block? Probably not. So if that's the case, yeah, I really like this line of you can ponder and the times you hit terminus. It's like pretty good, or swords.
Yeah, my inclination was to back to basics there, chump with the Snapcaster Mage, and then cash in my Teferi to rebalance the Vengevine. And now you pretty sure that Autumn's not going to be able to recast. So this ponder is seeing Force of Will, Force of Negation, Ven's Reclamation, and Andrea chooses to keep.
Yeah, so keeping is probably being content with Force of Will, pitching the back to basics. If things get rough, you're playing the Snapcaster Mage here,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're looking to be able to cash in your Teferi to pick up the Snapcaster again, and then you can Reclamation it back. So that's kind of like the multiple turn sequence that Andrea is trying to execute.
Yeah. Autumn does draw a Stitcher Supplier here, which is going to be a pseudo dark ritual for this Hogak. It's able to stick.
Yeah, so I can see Mengucci Force of Willing this because that's
Me
really
too.
like Autumn's ticket back in. So
Yeah.
being able to hit cards like Faithless Looting, a Gravecrawler would enable casting the Hogak, and would you have rather just counter the supplier in the first place or the Hogak later?
Right.
So,
And you have to know that that was Autumn's draw step for the turn, because if they had it the turn before the turn before that, they would have cast it. Like they drew Vengevine last turn.
yeah,
So
I agree.
you can reason that the last card in Autumn's hand is not good.
Mhm.
Okay. And now we see Saven's
So,
Reclamation.
yeah, so without a second Snapcaster in the graveyard or anything like that, you can't attack because of the times that they draw Bloodghast or Vengevine.
Right.
And then uh, and yeah, Bloodghast ends up happening here. So you're actually able to block, and then you can Reclamation it back, and then maybe Brainstorm or Ponder. So
Mm-hmm.
Teferi, like the plus doesn't always matter, but allows for subtle things like this.
Yeah. And obviously, just being able to play these sorts of cards at instant speed over sorcery is such a huge advantage. Because Autumn may cast a spell, and that gives you information for something that you're looking for specifically. So the Teferi Plus here is actually looking really good, and we've seen this Teferi accrue quite a bit of value. One of the options Andrea does have is Teferi Bounce my Astrolabe. Because maybe they say, all right, my cards are just going to be generically good enough here. If I'm able to just draw a couple extra cards this game, I'm going to be able to pull ahead, and that might be what Andrea wants to do.
Yeah. So what the Teferi bounce kind of equates to is like for the Astrolabe, it's just one mana draw card, and then if it's Snapcaster, then it's 2 extra mana plus whatever spell you want to cast. So on average, like 3 mana, and then do whatever you want. So Teferi's gonna have some flexibility there, but I could see Andrea trying to set up that way, minusing Teferi when it has 4 counters. So not flashing back this turn, but the next turn ideally. But getting it back in Flooded Strand here. So that has to scream like Mystic Sanctuary, like getting the second one. And then you can instant speed, flashback the Reclamation to get back Snapcaster Mage in the times where you want a Swords of Plowshares. Also, you can minus the Teferi, so you're getting back both Snapcaster Teferi. So I think that's what Andrea's trying to do is set up.
And it looks like Andrea is going to get back. Is that a Ponder here or a Brainstorm?
It didn't look like an old card, so probably a Ponder.
Yeah. And it looks like it's a Ponder here.
Okay, so that's interesting. So getting the Ponder, but still choosing to plus your Teferi. So I guess with that line, it's the Reclamation flashback, being able to get back the Snapcaster Mage that Andrea's trying to set up.
Wow, Faithless Looting is a pretty good draw here from Autumn. In response, Andrea will Ponder. Not something.
Yeah, really hoping
say
for
very
Force of
often.
Negation.
Force of Negation, probably the number one card that you want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Most notably, exiling. Oh, look at that, man! Andrea is on a path to steal game one, and we say steal because this graveyard deck really is so good game one against these blue decks. And a Dovin's Veto. Wow. So
yeah, he's doing a really good job of showcasing the power of blue, just like these Ponder and Brainstorms really being able to kind of sculpt this whole game the way he would ideally need it to go, and finding these singletons like Teferi Time Raveler.
Yeah. Man, this is just
So
Andrea very slowly pulling ahead here over time.
yeah, so vetoing the altar might seem kind of weird because it doesn't seem like it does anything, but it's actually pretty important because every land would turn into a Bloodghast, which would then turn into milling 2 cards, and it just starts this whole chain of events. You just have the Snapcaster with Reclamation in the graveyard. You really are, and then here you get to draw 2 cards. So you really just want to make sure that you're able to trade off with any way that Autumn could potentially get back in the game.
Absolutely, and it's worth noting that you can run that Bloodghast, looting line that you talked about, but Andrea's at 1, so literally any threat Autumn is able to stick is a lethal attacker. And now that the game is in, or the game state is sort of slowed down for a little bit, Andrea is able to invest 5 mana into this 7's Reclamation, and he, this is really where he's going to start to play. He already has accumulated now, so we're going to see a lot of cards out of him, and it's just going to be about closing this game.
Yeah, so he has to play the Reclamation there because he chose to minus with Teferi this turn for the times where a land is drawn to get back Bloodghast, or when Vengevine can come off the top. So yeah, it's sometimes hard to remember that your sorcerers don't always have flash, but
so this Ponder is seeing Entreat the Angels, Oko, and turn, and that's a couple cards that you want to see. Oh,
yeah,
but a Faithful Sleuthing for Autumn here, and shields are down for Andrea.
Yeah, so looting, finding 2 things that you could put in the graveyard and get back. So it looks like Autumn.
Oh, we still have a game here.
In fact, I think that's really good for Autumn.
Yeah.
But the Entreat off the top is going to be kind of interesting as to how this plays.
And Autumn has access to Hogak here as well, even though both these threats are lethal, excuse me. But they're choosing just to
you get an extra counter on your Carrion Feeder this way.
Yep. There you go.
So it looks like you get 4 cards for free in the graveyard. You have the Altar, Citrus Supplier, other Altar land. So you have to choose between Bloodghast and Looting. Which one would you keep in the yard?
I would keep the Bloodghast, and the reason why is that it's a hasty threat, and that's going to be very important because Andrea is specifically at 1 life. Having a lethal haste threat is probably where I want to be. But the power of Faithless Looting is, of course, undeniable.
Okay, so choosing not to cast the Hogak, that's a line I didn't really consider.
Yeah, and Andrea has quite a few options here.
Well, he has the Entreat on the top, right?
Was that a Terminus?
Oh,
or I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a miracle card. I thought it was Entreat, but
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and it is Entreat, and I think that means Andrea is going to be able to close out the game here. But Autumn is at 35, so
yeah, the life actually got
it really does. Andrea is able to make 5 angels. Yeah, so that's 20 power. So that's 2 attack steps for lethal. Obviously, he's great at Andrea is great at blocking this turn, but
yeah. So we see Autumn being slightly punished for not playing Hogak there because you really want to take a bite out of those angels as soon as possible.
Yeah. I think
so flashing back Looting is where I would start as well. The times you hit a land, you're able to get back both Bloodghast. Okay, that's really good.
Yes. Okay.
So you might be able to go wider than the angels at this point.
Wow, hitting double bridge there is insane, actually.
Yeah. It could be. It could be possible that Andrea is even after miracling an Entreat, that Andrea might still need a Terminus.
Yeah, I think Andrea might be forced into Terminus here with this Carrion Feeder. There's just going to be so many zombies on the team. Autumn is going to be able to make, and Autumn can also attack with the Carrion Feeder, which has to be blocked because Andrea it's lethal, which means it's going to die.
Well, so
that's 2 more zombies. They can,
but your Carrion Feeder might be worth more than just 2 zombies, and you don't really want your Carrion Feeder to kill an angel because then you lose your bridge.
I believe bridge is non-token creature.
It's
for
non
your
tokens
opponent?
on your side, but it can be
Yes.
tokens on their side. Because if it was tokens on your side, you would have infinite
Yeah.
zombies.
Okay, so there's some interesting interactions going on, but Autumn can put 6 zombies on the battlefield this turn, but Andrea will have 6 blockers and a Teferi, so they're able to bounce a zombie. But Autumn
Yeah.
also has a haste threat of Bloodghast in their hand, and
Cool.
Andrea also has access to Oko Make a Food, which can gain 3 life. Wow.
Yeah, and one thing that's kind of hard about the texture of all this is like what does Autumn do to play around like a potential terminus at instant speed with Teferi Time Raveler? But also just what can Andrea do to get ahead from this situation? It almost feels like you need to resolve things back to parity.
Yeah, I think if you're Andrea here, because of the Hogak. Well, let's see. Can you Hogak, or can you elk the Hogak to make it a 3/3? And then, that still doesn't look like it's good enough, because in response to the elking, Autumn can sacrifice it to the carried feeder to make 2 more zombies.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't even have to be in response, but yeah, it
Yeah,
would be
you
like
just do it at the end of turn if they see fit.
Yeah, so I think Andrea still needs a good draw, but okay, so I forget if he shuffled or not. I think he knew about
No,
this.
that they knew about, or Andrea knew about this terminus. Wow, this is a very, very complicated. Yeah, I thought that Entreat was totally going to close things out, but the double bridge from below off of Faithful Suiting got Autumn back in the game.
Yeah, so it looks like it has to be the instant speed terminus then, but it's cool because you got a turn with Oko as well. So like you got the food token, which enables your fetch lands, but also just puts you out of like single Bloodghast killing you range.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So
and there's so much going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Well,
But
so
I don't think Andrea has enough mana to instant speed terminus here.
Did Andrea activate Teferi already? I just forget how many counters it has. I wish Planeswalker's tapped.
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently he didn't activate Teferi yet, which means you could bounce one thing after Elking. So then it's exactly fine as long as there's not a land for Bloodghast or a Bloodghast from hand. So that means Andrea still needs to draw into something.
Well, Andrea can bounce his own Snapcaster and then Snapcaster the Swordstill Power Shower in the graveyard as well. So, I mean, we're just seeing very, very wide decision tree. This is a very, very difficult to navigate game.
Yeah, I gotta think about this more.
Yeah, this is a tough game state. So what's going on now is to make Carrion Feeder into an elk to sort of remove Autumn's optionality of making zombies whenever they see fit. But
yeah,
now they have 8 zombies in play.
I still think you just die though. I think you had to terminus that turn.
So Andrea is not dead. He can bounce his own Snapcaster. Snapcaster swords one of the zombies. Oh no!
Well, no, you would have to
block everything.
You would have to swords your own angel.
And that just means you have to terminus next turn. Oh, but Andreas draws Snapcaster, but he only has 2 mana available because he can't fetch.
Yeah, I don't like calling things like I don't know exactly like everything that was going on or what was being thought, but intuitively to me, you had to cast terminus that turn, or else you were just dead on board to both the feeder and Hogak being sacrificed. Yeah. And even if you bounce the Snapcaster and source the Angel, then you didn't have enough blockers because like it's 8 versus 4, so you block 4, and then you have Snapcaster swords, and then you still take 2 damage. And Andrea already knows about the Bloodghast in the graveyard, so there's definitely a lot of moving parts, and getting the Oko down is like the path to victory, but I don't know if that was the turn for it.
So I think Andrea had a path to not lose that turn after casting Oko, but it just meant that Andrea would have to terminus the next turn. I have to go back and look at it. That was a very, very complicated game state.
But I think he just had to terminus there, but
I mean,
regardless, we're here now.
We're going to game 2, and Autumn up a match already. and up a game here. Can we? I mean, Andrea was very far ahead. That Autumn top decks a Faithful Suiting, hits double bridge from below, and just makes a bunch of zombies and is able to kill Andrea. That was a crazy game of Legacy.
Yeah. Also recall that Andrea was on a mold of 5, so and Andrea's not playing an unfair deck, so like mulling to 5 and being in that situation speaks a lot to like the potential for this Bant Miracles deck in the matchup.
Yeah. And let's look at Andrea sideboarding, because I think that's probably a little bit more prudent. Obviously, there's 2 copies of Containment Priest that are going to be coming in. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of creatures that Autumn wants to put in play from the graveyard. How do you feel about these Back to Natures? Sort of the hidden mode on the card is exile target card from a graveyard. At 2 mana, do you think that's a good enough rate for this matchup?
Yeah, I think you probably just have enough cards that like you just need things to go like your way in a certain way. Like and you're on the play, so you can probably snipe something.
Yeah. Excuse me. The card's name is Back to Nature, not Return to Nature. That is a different.
No, it's Return to Nature.
Return to
Back
Nature.
to Nature is the one that you play against Boggles.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, destroy all enchantments for 2 mana. But yeah, so Andrea does have access to some tools here.
Yeah,
but
and
let's see what.
So Containment Priest being one of the better ones, if I remember how it's phrased correctly.
Containment Priest is great. Yeah, if a creature would enter the battlefield and it wasn't cast, exile it instead.
Is it non-token? It has to be non-token, or else no tokens would work, right?
Yeah, it's non-token.
Okay. So that really stops Bloodghast, Vengevine. It doesn't stop Hogak.
From the graveyard.
So it doesn't stop Hogak and Gravecrawler then, because you cast those?
It might be cast from hand specifically.
Okay.
I'm actually
No, I'm well. The way it would have to be phrased for non-token to exist would be like a non-token enters the battlefield. Oh, and then you want it to be cast from hand? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident that a Containment Priest does stop.
No, it just says cast.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Jarvis helping out from the chat, but yeah, that makes sense to me because like the templating would be like really wordy if they wanted to be differently.
Yeah. So Containment Priest is still a good card in the matchup, but it's not a catch-all.
Yep, it's a catch few.
Catch few. Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think about Andrea's hand here? Like, it's hard. You have the cantrips, and you have a Force of Will.
Yeah, I think it's difficult to mulligan a cantrip, and you're not playing a high enough density of hate cards in your deck where you can mulligan to them super aggressively. It's really, really difficult to function cantrip Force of Will hands against this sort of pseudo combo.
Yeah, my rule of thumb in Legacy is like, if you aren't going to keep hands like this, you might not want to play the deck because like like you're playing a fairish type of deck and like you're cutting lands for more cantrips. So the times where you have heavy cantrip hands, you're just priced into doing this sort of thing.
Yeah, but we actually we see a pretty strong hand here from Autumn. Multiple lands, so they're going to be able to cast their spells. We have a Cabal Therapy for light disruption, and then we have a couple graveyard elements in the Vengevine and Gravecrawler, a Stitcher Supplier to get things going, and an Altar of Dementia to combo kill. So a lot of pieces in this hand.
Yeah, how do you feel about Cabal Therapy May, like yourself?
I think if it were game 1 and Autumn had drawn the 1 of Cabal Therapy, that's a fine line. But because you're playing against some pretty strong graveyard hate, like specifically Containment Priest, to put these 2 Vengevines in my graveyard, I think that's probably a little bit too all in of a play.
Mm-hmm. Then what are you naming when you target Andrea?
I think the options Force of Will, because that's one of the ways to stop Stitcher Supplier, and then potentially even Sword Step. Oh wow, but Autumn is just opting to go for the 2 of Containment Priest. They think they're going to be able to grind through the cards that you see out of Miracles, and just wants to make sure that there's no hard hate in play.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So like for the velocity that
Can't Thoughtseize the top of their deck,
Yeah. Did Mengucci keep with the Ponder?
I'm not sure.
Okay, he did keep with the Ponder. So message from our producer or whatever from
that's a really good play. just keeping the top, keeping the really important cards on top of your deck against discard. And we do see the Force of Will on Stitcher Supply.
Yeah,
Andrea aware that the engine cards are so important for this deck to get.
Yeah, the third card from the Ponder is actually Force of Negation. So this Force of Will is actually educated with the Force of Negation too. So you're kind of like pairing off like what's the reasonable things that are going to happen for the next few turns. So once again, just being able to predict the future-ish using, or playing for the future using Brainstorm and Ponder.
Yeah, and I really like the sequencing from Andrea too.
But the sequencing is also very good from Autumn's side. Just trying to optimize like all the like missteps that can happen from from Mengucci's side, because Mengucci kind of has to be reactive to the things that Autumn's planning, and Autumn's doing a good job of just like trying to sequence and like thread the needle.
They're able to spend their mana every turn, which is something that's really important for a deck like this. But right now there's 2 Vengevines in hand. One doesn't have a way to get them in the graveyard. I mean, they could Cabal Therapy themselves. That is an option next turn, and that might be what we see here. But it would walk into this Containment Priest pretty hard.
Yeah, so the cards that Autumn doesn't know about are the Priest and the Force of Negation, which happen to be particularly good here. Autumn is educated that the Ponder was kept and only had now knows that only had the Mystic Sanctuary potentially for land. So that means that the other 2 cards were good enough that like the Ponder was kept for the land and the other cards. Like if it's just a land and 2 like I don't know, really, really bad cards like, I don't know, Jason the Mind Sculptor and something else that just wouldn't play here, probably wouldn't have kept. So a lot of things going through Autumn's mind here.
I mean, but if you're an Autumn seat, you have to think, all right, if this game is going to slow down and go another 10 turns, this Miracles deck probably has the tools to take over the game. And there, here we see the Cabal Therapy target myself. Wow. And Andrea choosing to brainstorm in response, which means that they have to be thinking about casting Force of Negation here, right?
Yeah, I do like the brainstorm in response, because that was kind of like a committal thing where that Autumn is likely to have a zombie in hand, so that a subset of time it is Stitcher Supplier. But even if it's just any old zombie, maybe even another Gravecrawler, then there's times where the times where it's Putrid Imp, then it gets to be Putrid Imp, maybe discard some Bridges or Vengevines. It's probably less likely to be Bridge because that would have been played beforehand. So you can rule out that one. So it's more likely to be, let's see, if it was Stitcher Supplier, you also would play that first. Great. So Andrea can actually deduce a lot about Autumn's hand from that sequencing, which is kind of sweet. And so it's Carrion Feeder or Gravecrawler that is the other zombie.
And here's the really cool thing, is that Andrea hit that Terminus off of that Brainstorm. So what might happen here is he just says, all right, I'll get smacked for 8 and go down to 10. But then I'm going to Terminus. I'm going to get rid of your 2 Vengevines. I'm going to get rid of your Carrion Feeder. You'll probably put the Gravecrawler back in the graveyard as a response.
Just all of them in the graveyard.
Yeah, actually. So yeah, put the Vengevines in the graveyard. So
But from that whole detective mission that I did, you can actually deduce it's very improbable that Autumn can bring back 2 Vengevines next turn. So because you can rule out everything except for more Carrion Feeders and Gravecrawlers, because all of those would have been sequenced first. So that there's only 6 cards that Autumn could have that would bring back this Gravecrawler. So it's actually it doesn't look like it on the surface, but this is a statistically very good position for Andrea.
Yeah, and on top of that, Autumn's going to be able to dump all this stuff back in their graveyard, which there's all the stuff they're going to have sort of gas in the tank for future turns. But Andrea has the Containment Priest to follow it up, so those Vengevines aren't going to be coming back.
Yeah, so a question from Mengucci's side is it Containment Priest or Return to Nature? And one thing you can deduce, though, is that you can just Return to Nature with the zombie on the stack.
Yeah, so because they're both at instant speed, he doesn't have to make the decision right now. He can wait to see what happens. Autumn does draw a Putrid Imp here, so that's going to probably prompt some action from Andrea in response.
Yep. So using my previous detective work, that it's Putrid Imp without a Bridge from Below in hand, most likely. like it's pretty unlikely to be the other scenario.
Mhm.
So once again, able to deduce some things about the hand, and then being able to know that Containment Priest is a better pick. But if I recall correctly, Vengevine should be a May, because that's how they like to template those cards back then.
Yeah,
Which
different
would mean
times.
that it stays in the graveyard, which is pretty sweet.
Mhm. But Autumn is still going to have to find a way to start attacking here. The Putrid Imp is a 1/1 in the air, but Andrea is going to be able to find an answer to that soon enough.
Yeah,
Autumn
and
can attack with the Gravecrawler as well.
yeah,
It can attack through the Containment Priest. So
yeah, we still have a game.
we still have a game.
And yeah, thanks to Jarvis for pointing out that therapy reveals the hand instead of just whatever. So all my detective work was for nothing. So
But the fact that you were able to put it together was still very impressive.
thanks. So attacking with Containment Priest, because it's at least for this turn still an important enough card that
Mhm.
both of Autumn's cards can't block. So just get in the damage because you're not blocking.
Yeah, you're not going to block this Gravecrawler. I believe.
Except you can block and then make it a 2/2.
Yes, because of the fetch land and the alternate. Oh, this is, you hate to see it. This is sort of an old trick with Putrid Imp. So Putrid
Yeah.
Imp, when you have Threshold, 7 cards in the grave, it becomes a 2/2, and you can do that at instant speed because of the fetch land. So Autumn choosing to block there, making it Putrid Imp a 2/2 by activating a fetch land, putting the 7th card in the graveyard. Jeez. And now we see a hasty Bloodghast that's going to be able to come into play here.
Yeah, so Autumn knows about the reclamation and knows that Andrea chose not to cast a reclamation. So yeah, baiting with this is a good idea because you can just hold the Bloodghast for times where the reclamation chooses to not be cast again, and then if you draw any bounty, then you're good.
Well, the other thing is that holding the Bloodghast this turn means that you might draw another castable creature, so you'd be able to use Vengevines. But Andrea drawing his second copy of 2 of Containment Priest here, which is going to be able to keep those Vengevines in the graveyard. But
So
Andrea's still on the back foot here.
yeah, I thought he might do this. So yeah, using Reclamation to get the green source. So we're actually seeing the drawback of being banned and still playing Mystic Sanctuary coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
So needing to Reclamation back the Floodstrand has the opening for exactly this, which is lights out.
Yep, and that basic planes is going to prevent Andrea Mystic Sanctuary to put Terminus back on top of their deck. And that's it. Autumn draws another zombie, and they're able to attack. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's, there are a couple turns that game where, Andrea, he could have held up the second copy of Containment Priest with Seven's Reclamation. He could have Seven's Reclamation back the original copy of Containment Priest there. That we saw that misstep with the Containment Priest attack into the Putrid Imp, which allowed Autumn to kill it originally. And just like that, Autumn 2-0 over Andrea Mengucci here. And that Hogak deck just, man, totally blew through Bat Miracle.
We spoke a lot about the match from Andrea's side because there's so many different decision points that were hard to piece out and just using like Ponder and Brainstorms. But Autumn played extremely well in terms of pacing the game, how to play Cabal Therapy that game. Game 1, just figuring out how to steal that game properly. And I think like very well deserved by Autumn. And I wonder if Andrea is going to watch this later and just see the things that could have happened slightly differently, or I'd be curious as to like what he was thinking about on the last turn of game 1, for instance.
Absolutely. And, watching, for anybody who wants to get better at Magic, watching film of you playing is an unbelievable tool. When I'm preparing for an event and I want to do it, that's what I do. But we've had someone with 2 wins now. So you know what that means? It's raffle time.
All right.
And what are we going to be giving away here?
Yeah, it looks like these gold and black dice. So they have the Card Hoarder logo from Card Hoarder, one of the sponsors of the stream, along with Wizards of the Coast and Scott Monroe. So yeah, apparently you just need to type Card Hoarder in the chat. So as always, I'm going to do it too. Maybe this will be my week.
I'm pulling for you, man.
Thanks. I do have like sentimental dice that I use that like my father bought me when I was like 8. So I probably won't use this, but I would still like it, and I would probably give 1 die to each of my friends that I like a lot. That way they can also feel like winners. So.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. That's very, very, very kind of you. But Jonathan is not guaranteed to win it. You can type you can type it in the card in the chat, and you can win these as well.
Yep.
All right. So while we're waiting for the last matchup is going to be, or potentially the last matchup here, is going to be Andrea Mengucci's Grixis Delver deck versus this Hogak deck again. And what do you think about that matchup?
Well, all I have to say is there's a reason why Andrea chose Bamp Miracles before Grixis Delver. We saw it actually last week from the other point of view, if I recall correctly, that it was Javier against Autumn, and Javier was on the Hogak deck and handedly won. So I would have a similar prediction with still 2 MPL players, 2 very high level players, and so there's not going to be like mistakes that are just going to like throw the game back and forth. So I think things are going to resolve to more likely their matchup like statistic, which is just that Hogak should be like 70-30 or something in the matchup.
Yeah, I think Hogak is definitely favored. To your point of mistakes not being able to make, but Andrea obviously an incredible Magic player. But we saw a couple missteps from him game 2 there that did cost him that match. So it's very possible that the same thing happens on Autumn's side of the team, especially because there are all these micro decisions that you have to make with Hogak, and it's not clear what the best line.
And it looks like the winner is Say Jim too. So yeah, reach out to it's Julian, or he'll reach out to you or something. You reach out to him, and yeah, these dice will be yours. So congratulations, I'm happy for you.
Yeah. All right, and those matches went pretty quick, handily showing Mango who's boss, and that's going to be it for me for the night. But it was a pleasure casting with you, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to see the rest of Legacy that week.
Yeah, I'm gonna be sideboarded out for now, but I might come back in for another round later. So yeah,
Right on.
thanks for joining me. We'll see you later.
All right, we'll be right back.
Yeah.
Yo, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the LPL. I'm here with Bob Huang, my good friend.
Yo, I'm so happy to be here. These games
Yeah.
have been intense.
Yeah, but let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Wizards of the Coast, Cardholder, and Scott Monroe. Without them, this stream would not be possible, and we get to watch great games of Legacy because of that.
Yeah, I'm totally floored. I love our sponsors for making this happen.
Yeah.
But kind of the two matches we've seen have been like very intricate and like very detailed and tight play from both sides.
Yeah, I think especially the post-board games of Hogak versus Graveyard Hate become a lot weirder and more complicated. I think we're going to see the same dynamic play out in this next match. But let's take a look at the next deck list we got. So I played something close to this last week, and I'm sure everyone has seen versions of this. But tell us about this deck, Bob.
So this is basically old school Grixis Delver, I guess. It was kind of a deck that has basically added Dreadhorde Arcanist compared to Deathrite Shaman. So it's changed somewhat. You're playing more cantrips. Looks like Mengu is also playing 2 Reanimates, which I think is a little bit spicy. I'm trying to think of like if it has like great applications in the matchup. And while Autumn has creatures that they put in their graveyard, sometimes they can cost a lot of life. So what do you think of the matchup overall? Obviously, pre-board, I think Autumn's pretty favored. Do you think Mengu has the cards to win a post-board game?
3 Surgicals and 2 Plague Engineers is quite a bit, but I would like to point out there is the best reanimate target of all, which is Hogak the Arisen Necropolis.
Yeah, I mean, paying 7 life, I guess it's still
Yeah,
pretty good.
but you get an 80 tripler.
Okay, that's pretty big.
So the real reason I think that's good is it denies them the option of playing it. So if they like flip it off Stitcher's Wire and turn 1, you reanimate it. That's just a huge tempo swing, right?
But I think we've seen Autumn be super careful on sequencing, and like
Yeah.
lists are known, so I think it'll. I mean, obviously, if a
Yeah.
Stitcher Supplier like mills it turn 1, then there's not much Autumn can do. But you see a lot of times where Autumn's been waiting to turn 2 before playing the creatures. So I think I think Autumn's going to continue to play tight, and I'm excited to see what happens. By the way, this is an elimination match, so if Autumn wins, they basically advance to the next round, and Mengu is out. Mengu needs to pull off the reverse all kill and win 3 in a row with Grixis Delver in order to advance. So we'll see if he gets things started with a win here.
And yeah, we discussed this before this match briefly, but remember, Autumn chose to play this deck because I think Autumn lost to this deck last week playing against Javier. So kind of funny hot potato going around.
Yeah, I mean, when you realize the power of something is when you get really beat down by it. So I guess
Yeah.
Autumn's putting the business back to Mengu. So
Yeah, so let's see if Mengu can pull it off to the match. All right. Well, Autumn has won the play, and yeah, I mean that's a hand of magic cards.
Autumn's hand's not particularly strong,
What?
but it does. I mean,
I think it is.
Okay, so you can play a turn 2 Hogak. Okay, I guess you can't really like ship anything
Like,
that can play a turn 2 Hogak. Never mind. I
yeah,
take that back.
I don't really know what you want. Like, and now you get a Vengevine for your troubles as well.
You'll need another creature, but certainly a possibility.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering if there's a scenario where, ooh, that might be good. I'm not sure though. Let's see, what does that do? You
I
can
think
play
maybe
Power Therapy, flashback, or you could
maybe you
replay
just therapy
Therapy.
for force and play a Hogak, and then it's like just like really hard to win. Or you therapy for force or days, I guess.
Yeah. I mean,
Brainstorm. Interesting.
ooh, that's pretty good too. But now also Autumn knows the coast is clear, right? So what can you do? You can play. What happens if you therapy yourself? No, that doesn't do anything. Does it? Um, you
Well,
gotta.
you need another creature to convoke it out is the problem. Interesting.
Well, you're gonna get the Vengevine back, right?
Well, you need to cast 2 creatures. What are the 2 creatures?
Oh yeah. Huh. Well,
That was
maybe
interesting.
Autumn setting up for next turn.
Well, now
Oh
that
no,
they
now
found
there's a
Bloodghast,
Bloodghast.
they
There's a
found Bloodghast,
Bloodghast now.
but that wasn't deterministic, so I think that was kind of interesting. They
Yeah, I'm
targeted
not
Mengucci and probably gonna just take the bolts,
the
I
lightning
suppose.
bolts, right?
Yeah,
Because the
and
ways the one of the ways you can lose this matchup is to getting lava spiked a lot, right? In a close race scenario.
yeah, but that's not gonna happen anymore because
Nope.
Autumn's gonna have Hogak, and I think Mengucci might just scoop here. There's no way he can race this with the hand that he has. I mean,
Also,
he
you
can
get
draw like
down
a
the
Brazen
Vengevine too.
Borrower, but like you're still losing to the Vengevine.
Yeah.
So
This was a kind of a nuts hand. Like it looked yeah.
yeah,
Edgar's like, I'm
over on
out.
turn
I'm
two.
out.
Over on turn two. I think we do want to keep in mind it's like probably like 3 a.m. where Mengucci is,
Yes,
and
yes.
he probably has like he wants to get to bed, and like in the games that he's like 1% to win, he's just been scooping. Or actually, in that game, I don't even know if he's even 1%. One interesting card I see him bringing in is Gilded Drake, so
Yeah.
that could be a fun swapsies for a Hogak. But I guess that would be kind of the only target for it. That would be better than like a 3/3 flying, I guess. I guess you could take a
So
big carrion feeder, but they would just sacrifice itself.
yeah, so one interesting thing we're seeing Autumn do this time as opposed to last time is concern taking out all of the altars. I think that's kind of a good plan because I don't think you really need to combo kill your Delver opponent all that often.
Yeah, and it can, and like we've seen a lot of these games come down to like top deck wars where the altar really
Yeah.
hasn't been that impressive. Obviously, it's kind of like an engine card, but in this kind of matchup, you're just like doing so many one for oneing, especially given
Yep.
that Mengu is bringing in surgical, so altar gets even worse. Like you probably can't even
Exactly.
combo them through a surgical.
And
So
another point is Mengu's deck has no basic lands. Assassin's Trophy is just a straight up Vindicate for 2 mana.
hmm so it looks like Autumn's bringing in 4 trophy, 2 Thoughtseize for the surgicals. I like that.
Yep.
So pretty similar sideboarding to kind of what we saw game 1. Interesting. Mengu's bringing in 1 Abrade in case of the altars, but he's realizing like that's not really the best way to fight this battle. I think your best cards are going to be Plague Engineer and Surgical, much like what we saw game 1, and then kind of tempoing them out with Arcanist and Delver. So we'll see how that goes.
My question for you is, do you think if you leave an Arcanist, should you leave in bolts?
I think you should at least leave in a couple.
Yeah.
It has like some applications, including like kind of putting them off Hogak for a turn or two, but I guess that's kind of a losing battle. I don't know if did he take them all out?
I believe so. I think it's an interesting strategic decision.
hmm
So by taking all of them out, you're saying that you think you can control the board completely without having to like try to lava spike them out. So
Interesting.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's
Meanwhile,
interesting.
Autumn's hand is quite good, I think.
hmm
It doesn't look quite good, but the thing is, you have so many enablers, and you don't have a payoff card yet, but you have a bunch of enablers, and I think that's where you want to be versus Force of Will and the like.
So it looks like Autumn's gonna fetch play around Wasteland, probably lead on Stitcher Supplier, I would guess. Unless. So like the
Yeah,
reason to lead on Supplier is to kind of like open up your options for next turn. Like you might hit a Bloodghast, you might hit a Vengevine, you might hit a Hogak. It kind of helps you like plan your turn.
right.
There also was an argument for saving the fetch land since you already have a Bloodghast, but Autumn's choosing to play around Wasteland instead.
Yeah, I think it's a close decision. Let's see what's milled.
Gravecrawler, Faithless Looting, Bloodstained Mire.
Yeah. I mean, so one of the things is without Plague Engineer, it's actually pretty hard to deal with a wide board from the Hogak deck, right?
And so you see Mengucci not dazing because he wants to potentially like slam Plague Engineer next turn and then
Yeah,
still have Force and another daze if he doesn't
right.
use either of those spells this turn. He's definitely, hoping he draws like a 1 mana. Well, I guess next turn he's probably just casting Plague Engineer regardless. So it's kind of not ideal when you have an Arcanist and nothing to flash back.
Yeah, the
But
sequencing is a little bit weird here. Because the swamp is in play first, you can't looting discarding your Bloodghast first, but you
mhm.
can play Putrid Imp first to get around that. Oh, interesting.
Huh.
Huh.
So looks like they're just gonna play Gravecrawler, but it might have been a slight missequence because the Bloodghast is kind of free. Like if there's a surgical, like surgical is gonna be good no matter what. So there's no real way
Well,
you play around it.
the one counterpoint is you do have another fetch land to play around it, right?
It's
But this
fair.
engineer is going to be incredible. Like you don't want to dump your entire
Plague
hand
Wind.
to. Yeah, this is one of the best plague engineers I've seen in a while.
That being said,
Oh
like
my
he doesn't have a
gosh.
cantrip yet, so he has some pressure, a couple counter spells. I would say Mengucci's solidly ahead. If he hits a
Yeah.
cantrip, he gets even more in the driver's seat. But I don't think like, I mean, I'd say he's favored, but I wouldn't put it like overwhelming or anything like that.
There's a Hogak. So if you find another creature that doesn't die to Plague Engineer, you can actually convoke it out. It'll get
You,
Force of Will, but that's fine. But unfortunately, you draw another zombie.
yep. But you also you have you have two lootings to kind of dig further. We'll see if Mengu chooses the force
Oh
here.
my god,
Choose
there's the
not to.
Vengevine!
Interesting.
So what you can do is discard Vengevine, Bloodghast,
Yep.
play a land, get back the Ghast, play both of your Gravecrawlers, they obviously die, but the Vengevine comes back, then you can convoke out Hogak.
Yep.
But Mengu's debating Force Starting, but doesn't. So I believe what I just said is going to occur.
Uh-huh.
Other thing you could try to do, which is technically a line you could take, I don't think Autumn will go for it, is to just trophy the engineer this turn. But
Well, I think you got to figure that there's a really good chance that Mengucci has a counterspell. Turns out he has force and daze, so
yep.
he could choose. They could choose to play around daze by waiting a turn, but then you don't even get the Vengevine back necessarily, and you have more turns to like staring down an Arcanist is also scary. So I think Autumn's priced into going for something this turn, and looks like it's going to be Hogak.
Yep. I think I agree with your analysis. I think it's basically a forced play on their part.
So Gravecrawler in this situation is
Lotus Petals.
basically, yeah, a way to cast Vengevine.
They're Lotus Petals for Vengevine, essentially.
Which then become, mana for Hogak.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how like all of these things work together and the deck is just kind of broken, frankly. All right.
Yeah.
I believe this one's going to get counterspelled.
Yep.
Um,
Sitting on the days, great spot to
so,
use it.
well, one nice thing for Autumn is they can just try again next turn.
Ooh, Thoughtseize is not bad.
Actually,
Then you
yeah, that's a reasonable Thoughtseize here.
so you probably just attack for 2. Arcanist blocks the Bloodghast, and then you take 4. And so you just try to find like, I'm not sure if Mengu left in Gurmags, but you need some other way of kind of racing the Vengevines.
So the interesting question is, do you? I guess you don't.
Yeah, I don't think you can force this. I mean, it's a 2/1, doesn't have haste.
Yeah.
So.
Well, no, I was about to say, do you attack with your gas and just play the second gas and play a land get back? But probably not. I think that opens you up to too much.
Yeah, and you see the recursive power of Hogak again. It's just like,
yeah,
you just, you dazed one. That's such a great exchange, right? Well, I guess it just comes back over and over again. So, like, how good can it be for you? That's why these fair blue decks are just struggle mightily with Hogak, and it probably, along with certain lands builds, are like the best deck to beat generic fair blue decks with.
Yeah, definitely agree with that analysis, and I believe we'll see Mengu forces pretty quickly because
I mean, you can't beat it, so.
No, there's no Caracas in
So
this
like,
build either.
Mengu needs to rip like, best draw would be like Brainstorm into second Plague Engineer.
Yeah, I mean, Autumn's allowed to get in a bunch of damage, so that's pretty nice. And we still have a Faithless
Alright,
looting.
Brainstorm. There's Brainstorm.
All right, Brainstorm. What do you got, Brainstorm? So
you got a second Brainstorm off the Arcanist too. So Even it's not over yet.
So maybe we'll see the snowballing effect of Arcanus show up here. So one thing I really like is Mengu side out all the bolts, so you can just tap the volcanic to cast Brainstorm for free. You don't even have to think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're more likely to, I guess.
You can also hit surgical.
Yeah, and the life matters.
Yeah. Reanimate.
Reanimate.
No.
No.
Can you cast that one? You go to
No.
4, and you can have
wait.
a Delver to trade with a Blood Gas. I guess you can
Oh,
cast
maybe
it.
you can.
Yeah. And the Delver trades with Blood Gas. Yeah,
It's
and then
kind
next
of
turn.
risky.
Next turn, you have an 8. Well, I don't know that you have that many other plays. You can what you can do is you can brainstorm again, I suppose, but
Looks like it's happening, Bob.
okay. So Autumn's at 13.
Wow. This also prevents the convoking out of Hogak indirectly
Yep.
as well.
We discussed it kind of as a thing that could happen. And now here it is.
It's happening. Yeah, I think this play is good actually, now that I think about it more and more. I was sort of scared that losing 7.
And I guess in this spot, if Autumn Trump attacks, then you lose the Delver, you go to 2, but then you still have Hogak.
Oh my god!
Alright, well.
It's Assassin's Trophy!
Alright, it was written. Hogak cannot be defeated. Best deck in Legacy. Pack it up. Pack it up. Wow, that was a dominating performance. This was a really long match too, given that it was just 3 matches, but it went long. I want to say we started at 6, and it's almost 8 o'clock. So that was intense. I loved every minute of it, and I think Autumn really, really impressed me with their stellar play.
Yeah, that was just incredible. Wait, that was, I believe chat's pointing out that was 3-0-6-0. The clean sweep.
Yeah, that was 3-0-6-0, and it still took 2 hours. That's crazy.
Yeah. A Lily hype indeed.
And I don't think I think a couple of the games were blowouts, but I think even a lot of the game ones had some play to them. There was the game 1 where Mengu entreated for a bunch, but Hogak. Gak.
All right.
Yeah. That was awesome.
I guess
all right.
I should get ready for my match. I'm up next. I'm not as confident as that, but good friend of the stream, Daniel Gottlieb, will be replacing me in the booth.
Ooh, I get to commentate with Galaxy Brain, Ghoul Ducat. I'm very excited for this, but we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back.
Yep, see y'all.